You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, like to be your host as always. Joined as always by Shankers. Shankers, what's happening? We good?
Nothing, just another good weekend in Scottish football. Plenty of goals, plenty of talking points.
Brilliant. We're also joined by, after his debut edition last week, very impressive, Rory Loy's back. Rory, how are we doing? You good?
Not too bad. First time I've had an impressive debut, I think. All good. Off work today, so watched all the football, watched the sports scene last night. Some good games, some big talking points, so looking forward to it.
Brilliant. And we're delighted to be welcoming back our learned colleague, Marc Wilson's back. Wilson, how you been?
Great, thanks for having me. I'm surprised to be invited back, and unfortunately I have to congratulate you and Shankers for the recent shows that you've done, the live shows and some of the interviews and that have been first class. I've been keeping up to date, and I saw that you'd broke 1,000 followers, so I'm hoping to get at least maybe about 800 deleted off tonight. Some of my patter and my controversial comments, so we'll see how we go.
Brilliant. But a lot's been happening, and we'll get right into the results. We'll start off with Aberdeen 1, Kilmarnock 0. Wilson, Tommy Wright's the new Kilmarnock manager. Just talk us through your opinion on that before we get into the game.
I mean, I'll be 100%, and I was quite kind of vocal about it on social media. At the time, you know, from what was going on, I think Tommy Wright was probably one of the better appointments that we could have got. You know, a vast experience, you know, knows the league, etc. I think that's possibly what Kilmarnock needed at the time. If it had been, you know, I kind of blame the board, to be honest, why it happened so late. You know, if you'd given him it at the start of January when, again, results were poor, you know, I think he'd maybe have a wee bit more time with the squad, possibly get maybe 1 or 2 more in, if finances allowed. And I think they'd possibly, I'm not saying be in a better position, but I think things would be more kind of concrete for him. But longer term, I'll be honest, I don't think, you know, I mean, I know he won the Scottish Cup with St Johnstone, had them very steady, but maybe I've just got a wee bit of ambition, and I know I've spoke to the two yous, you know, off air and on our chat that I just feel with these kind of appointments, in a year, 18 months, I think Kill will just be back to, oh, this Tommy Wright, we don't play good football and we're not doing this, because again, we say it all the time on here, we're ruined under Steve Clarke. In terms of success, maybe not in terms of how we played, but in terms of success that we had. And I just feel, I hope he does well. I'm quite sure he'll keep us up, to be honest. And at the time, yeah, you probably needed experience, but I'm very, very concerned about the quality in the squad. That's my biggest one. I mean, I think genuinely, I think Kyle Lafferty will do what your probably good friend Shankers Kevin Kyle did a few seasons ago, and single-handedly will keep Kelly up. I think Lafferty will score goals for Kilmarnock. I think he's a good player. If he can get the service, I think he'll do fine. But I'm even worried, you know, for next season, you know, about the amount of players that I just don't think are good enough. And I know it's hard when there's no crowd, etc., but everyone's in the same boat. But there's a lot of guys there that I'm just not convinced about. And I'm thinking, does Tommy Wright, is he going to get to sign 9, 10, 11 players? Because in my opinion, I think that's what Kilmarnock needs just now.
Yeah, definitely. But Rory, Aberdeen won, Kilmarnock 0 yesterday. Aberdeen scored their first goal in 7 games. What was your thoughts in the game? Were you surprised that Aberdeen got the victory?
I wouldn't say surprised. If they were going to win, it was going to be by the odd goal. You know, Tommy Wright showed at Ibrox last week that, you know, he's capable of setting up a team that can be difficult to beat, which I think Alex Dyer struggled with at times. So they went up to Pittodrie, and I thought it would probably be a draw. It was good for Derek McInnes to finally get a goal at Pittodrie, but no surprises. Winning by the odd goal was a result that, you know, it's not going to surprise many people. I would say that I agree with Wilson in terms of the appointment. I don't think it's the most exciting appointment for Kilmarnock fans, and I think Kilmarnock is a club who have got a ceiling, and and Stevie Clarke reached that ceiling continuously. And I think that based on that success, it's going to be really difficult for any manager to reproduce that. You know, under Stevie Clarke, Kilmarnock would go to Pittodrie and expect to win. Never mind pick up a point or a narrow defeat. So I wasn't surprised to see them walk away with a 1-0 win. It certainly relieves the pressure on Derek McInnes. He's had a tough start fixture-wise, Tommy Wright. I know that Kilmarnock didn't deserve to lose against Motherwell. Narrow defeat against Rangers and another narrow defeat at Pittodrie. I think they will have enough to stay up, but the problem they've got as well at this moment in time is that they're in that little bit of period where some clubs are looking at next season. Kilmarnock can't do that at the moment. They can't look to sign players for next season because they don't know what league they're going to be in. So the sooner they get safe, the better. But in terms of Aberdeen, really good win. I think Derek McInnes would have taken a 1-0 win at the start of the day, the start of the weekend. So he's got it. It's just, he speaks relentlessly, Derek McInnes, about finishing third. And it's going to be interesting what he says if they end up finishing fourth, because he talks about finishing third all the time, but it'll be interesting to hear if Hibs do finish third, his thoughts on that and where he sees his future at the club and if he thinks that next season he's going to be there.
I mean, sorry to interrupt you when I ask Shankers there. I think I like Derek McInnes. I mean, if I could have picked for someone feasible, obviously I would pick Pep or Klopp to be Kelly manager, but I would like Derek McInnes, and I'll tell you why. I just think he's reached his shelf life at Aberdeen. I just think it's stale now. But if you look at them over the years, like, and it's maybe it's not, maybe it's his scouting department, but he always seems to get a player that can do a job for a year and then move on. You know, the likes of Adam Rooney come in, scored barrel loads of goals, got into cup finals. Cosgrove did the same. Cosgrove had a great season. And he gets players, and if they perform really well, for example, Johnny Hayes, and he goes to Celtic, he always brought him back, and he always seems to have an eye for good players. And as I say, I know he's maybe spent a wee bit of money, but he's maybe made a bit of money as well. And as I say, I think Joe Lewis he's not a great season this season, but I think he's been a pretty consistent keeper as well. And as I say, Kilmarnock don't have the same budget as Aberdeen, but Derek McInnes is one I would love at Kilmarnock, to be honest. And as I say, maybe Aberdeen with their budget, etc., maybe they're expected to finish third. But as I say, I just think he's went stale there. I think he knows that. I think the club knows that as well. But if you look at his record, out with the Old Firm, it would be harsh to actually sack the guy.
Yeah, definitely. I touched on that last week in terms of the turnover. He signs players that do really well, and then they either leave, go back to their loan clubs. Even look at James Maddison up there at one point. So that just kind of goes back to the recruitment. It's he's done an unbelievable job. I agree to an extent that he went, things have went a little bit stale. But I think when you look at the turnover of players at Aberdeen, out with the Old Firm, they must have the biggest turnover in terms of actually moving players on who've been successful. So to continually do that over, how long's he been there? 8 years, 9 years? So I think it's harsh to say it's went stale because his players get taken off him continuously. I think he deserves. I think he's got money in the bank, so to speak, and he's got credit in the bank in terms of what he's achieved and what he's done at Aberdeen. And any cup final he did lose, majority of them were to Brendan Rodgers' Celtic. So it's really difficult to make a judgment based on that. So if he does want to stay, I think he should get next season as a way of showing a bit of loyalty, because he's shown unbelievable loyalty to them. I mean, he could have been a Rangers manager before. A couple of Rangers managers took the job. So, like I said, I do agree that it's maybe went a bit stale, but if anyone deserves a chance to try and freshen it up again, then it's definitely him. But I certainly don't see him being Kilmarnock manager anytime soon.
No, but he's just saying, if like in feasibility, like he's one I would definitely have liked. Aberdeen are a bigger club, but he's definitely one I would have liked.
Shankers, is there anything you want to add about this game before we move on?
No, I mean the boys have covered everything. Kilmarnock are really struggling now. Looks like they've no confidence whatsoever. They're lacking goals. They've got the worst away form in the league. 10 points for 16 games isn't really good enough for a team that finished third just a few seasons ago. So no, there's not much else I can say apart from that. I just think it's funny how football works sometimes. Hornby goes off injured, and then Henry comes on and he ends up scoring the goal that wins the game for probably no starting at all. So I just think football's funny the way that works out, and there's a great header, to be fair to the boy.
Definitely. We'll move on to Easter Road. Hibs get back into a decent run of form, 1-2-0. Martin Boyle and Josh Deutsch with the goals. Were you impressed with how Hibs played, Shankers?
I called it a few months ago. I think Hibs will finish third. I never seen Aberdeen kind of sliding away like this, but I just thought overall had a kind of good, solid, compact squad with quality all over the pitch. I don't know what situation is with Nisbet. I don't know whether he's going to come back into the fold or what. I think he's kind of messed that up for himself, putting in a transfer request. He's only been at the club 6 months and he's putting in transfer requests. I don't know whether that is. I think he could have maybe just bit the bullet and waited to the end of the season and seen if something happened there, because the bigger picture is if he's on the park playing and scoring goals, somebody's going to come in for him, and now he's kind of put himself out of the game a wee bit. So that would silly from his point of view.
Yeah. Rory, one player that stood out to me, and I'm sure the boys will agree, is Josh Deutsch. How impressed have you been with him?
He's been brilliant this season. He's kind of the modern day fullback. He bombs up and down the wing. Not dissimilar, obviously much younger than Kieran Tierney, but we were discussing Tierney before we come on the show there, and he's not dissimilar to him in the way he plays. He likes to get up and down. He is a little bit fragile defensively still. He's still got a lot to learn. There's been some bigger games this season where he's struggled, but his contribution over the course of the season has been unbelievable, and he's got no one better to learn from than Lewis Stevenson. And in those games that I touch on there where he's maybe struggled, Jack Ross has taken a step to maybe replace him with Stevenson, put a wee arm around him, and then maybe sit on the bench, watch how Stevenson does in these bigger games, and then kind of learn from it. So, we were touching on there about Derek McInnes. I've worked under Jack Ross for 6-7 months, and he's brilliant at that type of thing. I don't know the situation with Nisbet, but I've had any confidence in any manager to deal with that type of situation where a player wants to leave but still get the best out of him, it would be Jack Ross. So I don't think for a second that Kevin Nisbet's sitting there on the bench on the huff. I've every confidence Jack Ross would have dealt with that and dealt with it professionally and dealt with it well to get the best out of him. But in terms of Josh Doig, he's certainly one for the future. He's exciting. He's one you switch on the TV and you like to watch. He's all action, flying into tackles and running up and down that wing, getting balls in the box, and it was good to see him getting his first goal as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If Barisic left Rangers, I wouldn't think twice about replacing him with Josh Doig. I think he's no like for like, and Barisic is a better player just now, but I think he would just suit the way Rangers play. He probably prefers going forward and attacking than he does defending. So I think he would be a good replacement if Barisic were to go in the summer.
Yeah, definitely. Wilson, what about your favourite team in the league, St Johnstone? You tipped them to go down, and since then they have went on an amazing run of form, and a 3-0 win away to Motherwell. How impressed are you with Callum Davidson? The job he's done.
Callum watched the show and phoned me after it and said he was disappointed. I met him in Tenerife about 25 years ago. And we spoke then when he was an up and coming player. But no, he's definitely proved me wrong. But the regular listeners to the show know that's not a difficult thing to do. But as I say, I think he's done well again. But sometimes you can look at for me, that's a wee kind of false result, because I'm critical of St Johnstone because of how boring they are. But I'd actually forgot the cup final was next week, so you always get a wee bit of a thing the week before a cup final, because places will be up for grabs. So producing a result, obviously, I think, well, I'll get in the cup final, starting 11 and whatnot. But I was actually, I'm actually a wee bit concerned about Motherwell as well, because by watching the highlights, St Johnstone, it was well deserved. It played them off the park, had chances, etc. And Motherwell offered very, very little. And as I say, I actually noticed that the previous manager as well, and Graham Alexander, see when you're rubbish, why are you playing out for the back? Why do you keep 88 minutes in the clock and you're still trying to pass to the 6-yard box and pass in? Do you know what I mean? When you're under a bit of pressure, and they give away so many goals and chances like that. And I know that's a kind of modern way, and I do think Graham Alexander will eventually, come good. Whether he gets him up to anywhere near third or fourth, I would be very surprised, to be honest. But as I say, it's a cracking result for St Johnstone and a massive confidence boost. And it's good for an up-and-coming manager. He's also Scottish as well, which is a good sign for the future. But Motherwell are maybe a 6-pointer in a couple of weeks against Kilmarnock, getting dragged right back into this relegation battle.
Yeah,
I don't think that losing that early goal yesterday helped Motherwell. And just touching on the quality of St Johnstone, it was a great result. The first goal was outstanding. If that goal was scored in the Premier League, they would be talking about it, for a while.
Yeah.
It was
if Morelos had scored it, we'd be talking about it for 3 hours on this show.
No, it was a brilliant goal. It was some finish, and it was cutting inside and swerving it right in that bottom corner. And I don't think that helped Motherwell's case. I think after last week they were fragile anyway, but after that finish, that was quality. And St Johnstone can be labelled a bit boring at times, and they're not exactly attractive to watch with certain players and the way they play, and they get stuck in. But that goal was first class, and if you can get him on the ball next week in the cup final, then he could be a game changer.
That's at Hampden as well. He can move the ball.
Yeah, definitely. Two teams that are safe though, St Mirren and Livingston. They shared the points in a 1-1 draw. Rory, were you surprised at that result? Did you expect a draw for the two teams there?
I don't think anyone would be surprised by that result. In terms of Livingston, I don't think Livingston have any fears that they're not going to finish in the top six. I think they've now done enough. I don't see St Johnstone or Dundee United doing enough now to be able to catch them. I think Livy will pick up enough points. Then on the flip side of that, you've got St Mirren, who have had a good season, and they're a strong team within the division. So I think overall, a draw was to be expected all round, and it was a great finish for Cameron McPherson, the boy who was up and coming when I was at St Mirren. Likes to get stuck in, doesn't mess about, old-fashioned midfielder. So it was again another good advert for the league in terms of his finish. That was his weaker foot, swerving it right in off the post. So no, I think overall a draw from what I seen of the game looked fair, and probably no surprises all round.
Yeah, totally agree. I thought it was a very fair result. We'll move on to the game today. Just before we came on air, Rangers hit 4 again after hitting 4 on Thursday night. Hadji, Kent, Aribo and Morelos get the goals for Rangers in a 4-1 win against Dundee United. Shankers, at 20 minutes into that game, what was your thoughts of the Rangers' performance?
I thought Dundee United were probably a better team until the first goal. I thought the front three kind of linked up well. Unlucky not to probably be ahead with 1 or 2 goals, but it's the old thing, once Rangers got a goal, it's so hard to come back and win the game against them in the league. Aribo, Morelos, I thought were both standouts. I think I'm not critical, but I don't like when Morelos drops deep and links up the play. But I thought he done it excellently today. Aribo's feet, 1-2s, twisting and turning. I thought he was probably the best player in the park today.
Yeah, definitely. Rory, how impressed were you with Joe Aribo? I thought he was the best player in the park by a mile today. I just thought it was a creative spark that Rangers needed.
He's different class. He's a game changer, and when you're struggling to break a team down or you're under the cosh, he's a guy who can, one step over, swerve it in the bottom corner or the top corner, coming in for the outside, and he's involved in everything, cute 1-2s and different things around the pitch. Morelos coming deep as well. I think Morelos has had to adapt his game because he's realised that scoring goals isn't enough because of the players they've now got in the squad. I look at Celtic and I look at a team who, they've got Christie and they've got other creative players, but they rely so heavily on Edward that they're a mirror of Rangers 2 years ago when if Morelos didn't play well or didn't play, then Rangers didn't play. So he's had to add to his game this year to really contribute in other areas because other players have stepped up to the mark, and Aribo was part of that. And he got an injury which slowed him down mid-season, but he's came back, and even in Europe there during the week, he looks like a player who's on the ball, who's really up for having a really strong finish to the season. Yeah,
definitely. Wilson, what's been your thoughts on Rangers in your absence?
No interested, to be honest. They're rubbish, they're cheats, and they got all the penalties for the referees. No. To be fair, I mean, we just spoke about it before we come on air as well. That they're finding so many different ways to win, and that's what it comes down to. As I said, they were blowing away teams at the start of the season. And they had a wee kind of lull when they're beating, teams they should maybe be scoring more against. Your KILMARNOCK, Ross County's beating them 1-0. And then their performance in Europe, albeit it wasn't the free-flowing attacking football that they do, but again, they found a way to win. And
what did they not beat Ross County 6-0? No? Was it not 6-0? Was it 1-0?
Who was it they beat at Ibrox 1-0?
KILMARNOCK.
It was KILMARNOCK, but there was somebody...
St Johnstone.
St Johnstone.
Thanks.
They're finding, albeit with the aid of 2 penalties on Thursday night, they're finding ways of battling and winning in different ways, and that's what's been impressive. They're not they have plan A, plan B, and plan C. To go out and beat teams. The only thing, obviously I didn't watch the game today. How did Ryan Kent play today?
I thought it was fine.
He was good. He was.
I thought he did well on Thursday, so I was expecting maybe October, November for his next best and his next good game. You know, for £7 million, one good game every 6 months is no bad comeback. But as I say, you know my opinions on it. The league was done and dusted in October after that shambolic first Old Firm game. But Rangers have proved that they are well ahead of the rest this season. And as I say, you know, you maybe think, oh, Tavernier's injured, or they've got this guy here, and they can rotate those guys in midfield with Davis, Arfield, Aribo, Jack. They're just rotating them round, you know, getting the rest and whatever they need. Roof scores goals, Morelos scores goals, the wide players are scoring goals. As I say, and I was kind of talking to one of my mates this through the week, and you know what a big fan I am of Alan McGregor. And I'm saying, Alan McGregor, for me, I think would be unfortunate not to be probably Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time he needs to make the 1 or 2 saves in a game, he makes them.
It's difficult to argue with that. It's difficult to argue with that.
He must spend 88 minutes on Facebook or on Twitter or something because he's got nothing to do.
But you calculate the amount of points that he'll have won the team, as opposed to Tavernier, who scored 17 goals, and this is taking nothing away from him at all. How many of those 17 goals are when the team's 2-3 up, when they've got the 3 points in the bag, which again isn't taking it away from him, but you know, Alan McGregor has probably won over the course of the season more points than any other player on the team.
He's honestly been unbelievable since he came back to Rangers. Now, again, the first couple of seasons, you know, teams were creating chances against him because the team in front of him wasn't particularly great, and he'd maybe make, you know, 3 saves out of 5, but he'd still concede. But this season, every single time he's called into action, even the game they lost in the cup against St Mirren, that late goal, the initial save. Mm-hmm. You know, and he was very, very unlucky not to get the second one that the fella scored from. But as I say, everything is just connected with Rangers this season. And as I say, whether it's down to Gerrard or the players, the facts don't lie. They've won 27 games out of 31, whatever it is, and no one, not even the bitterest of supporters, can argue where Rangers are this season and in the league.
Yeah. Definitely. Just before we go into another couple of subjects, we should just say we're recording this before Ross County against Celtic. Let's chat. We'll have a wee prediction. Obviously, this goes out after the result, but let's have a wee prediction right now. We're at 6 o'clock on Sunday night. What do you think the score's going to be? I'm going to go 3-0 Celtic. We'll start with Rory.
Can it be easy going up in that bus to Dingwall? And I don't care who you are. At that level of football, there's always that wee bit in the back of your head until it's over that thinks, what if Rangers draw the day? What if, you know, after Europe, they're a wee bit off it? What if they drop a couple of points? These Celtic players have won so many trophies over the last 9 years that there will still be that bit. So when you watch the first go in, the second go in, the third go in, the fourth, it must be pretty demoralising and pretty demotivating. So with that in mind, I'm going to say that Ross County will score, but Celtic will win it by the odd goal and win it 2-1.
Wilson, what on?
I mean, just as Rory mentioned there about the journey up, you know, and as you, I always think if they're sitting in that bus and Dundee United get a draw or, you know, even win the 3 points, then it motivates you. I think that's what Celtic's problem's been. I think every single game, whether they're playing after, they look completely demotivated. There's no urgency, there's no spark. It's just a grind out. Now, I think it'll be a battle up there tonight. And as I say, the games are kind of running out now. You know, if they got it down to, 50? Well, it'll be 18 points if Celtic don't win tonight. But if they got it back down to 15 points and, you know, then there's still that glimmer that they can maybe cross up. But the games are running out now. And as I say, I actually think if Celtic draw or get beat tonight, I just don't think the players or the punters are that bothered now. They know it's far too much. The problems have been there. Laid bare, you know, with the whole circus that's went on this season. But as I say, it's one of these games. I think it's quite a hard one to predict, to be honest. And Ross County are fighting for their lives. You know, I kind of thought when Ross Stewart left, they'd be certainties to go down because that was their only firepower up front. But I'll go both teams to score, Celtic to win. I'll go 3-1. 3-1. There you go.
Right. Shankers, what we thinking tonight?
Celtic will win comfortably 3-4-0. I think they've been playing pretty well recently. Kind of Edouard's coming back into his game, whether that's because he knows the summer's coming up or whatever. There's a few players kind of playing well. Yet he's even come into it and played well when he's had his chance. So I think Celtic will win comfortably tonight, to be honest.
Brilliant. I think the boy Kenny's done really well since he came in, and I think he's helped Greg Taylor on the other side as well. He's provided a good balance, and I think he's really helped him out. And it would be great if Celtic can get him on board full time, because he's looked comfortable in a team that's been struggling. Like I said, I think he's brought the best out of Greg Taylor as well.
Yeah, Greg Taylor's a great player. Brilliant at Kilmarnock. Absolutely brilliant. He was at Kilmarnock, and it's the step up. And I think he's coped well. It's just the fact, the fellas the Kenny's came from Everton, so he's brilliant. But Greg Taylor came from Kilmarnock, so he's rotten.
But he wasn't brilliant, Taylor. He wasn't brilliant early in the season. Though he was making mistakes, and he wasn't as comfortable as he is now.
The whole team fell to pieces. There was, as I said on here, at the start of the season, going up to the Old Firm game, there was an issue. There was issues between that players, because if you cannot be motivated to play for a Celtic or a Rangers or any team in a game, then there's an issue whether it's off the park. Now, you can maybe see possibly Griffiths, possibly Edouard, Christie, one or two players. See, when you see 11 players demotivated and not trying, there's a problem. And I just feel the whole squad suffered from that.
I still think the boy Kenny's been good, though. I do. It's something to do with coming for Everton, but I think, like I said, he's provided a good balance. And on paper, I think as a fullback, he's a better fullback at the moment than Greg Taylor. And I just think coming in,
Greg Taylor's the best left back at the club.
Him coming in is definitely provided a bit more balance to Celtic. He looks strong. He looks like a winner. And I think he's been a good sign. It'd be good if Celtic can get him on board, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. We're just going to go, before we go on to some questions and things like that, I just want to throw this out there today. There was a news story in the Daily Record. I haven't even said I was going to touch on this, but do you remember Umar Sadiq that played with Rangers?
I think I know what you're talking
about. I know what you're going to say, and I feel sick.
Seville are trying to sign him from Almeria. Rory, can you give us a guess at how much Almeria want to sign him for? What Almeria want for him from Seville?
I would be lying if I knew who this player was. Umar Sadiq.
Do you remember the first?
Rangers in the cup
fight? Big tall guy, first season under Gerrard, big massive guy. Played in the cup semi-final against Aberdeen. That was his only appearance.
Oh right, okay, aye, and he wasn't great, and he never got an opportunity. Right, I remember this now. So he's went to Almeria and done well, and now Seville want him.
Yes. Guess the price. Guess the price tag. Guess what Almeria want for him.
Almeria are in the La Liga.
Yes.
The league below.
The league below.
Right, I didn't even know that, but brilliant. That's even better.
9 mil.
9 million. Just a wee bit short. 52 million.
Jeez, old man.
Was it left Rangers wanted up or something?
I think you need 6 cans for them.
And you want 5 cans back?
I know.
So I'm going to throw this.
How many goals has he scored?
I think he's done all right, actually. I think he scored.
He must have done.
Hold on, we'll just find out here. 12 goals and 4 assists in 22 games. I think that's quite good, by the way. But again, if he's worth 52 million, what are you worth, Rory, at that age? He's only 22, remember. I'm giving Shank a solid 20 million. I'm giving Wilson 10.
Rory would be worth 4 cans at that age.
At 22, I had the same amount of appearances as him. Put it that way, for Rangers. But I definitely wasn't worth 52 million.
It's crazy. I just thought we'd touch on that, but we'll move on. Obviously, there's a lot happened since Wilson was last on the show, particularly at Celtic. What is your thoughts on the situation now, and who do you think could be the Celtic manager in June?
Well, as I know, I've kind of been talking to you guys on our own chat and whatnot, but I find it completely bizarre, how Neil Lennon's still there. And what now, I think it was maybe Davy Provan that had a column in the paper a couple of weeks ago saying that this Celtic's next gamble is going to have to pay off, because they are not going to sell 60,000 season tickets with Neil Lennon as the manager. Now, if Neil Lennon is kept on as a manager, which I don't believe will happen, but if they're going to have to sign a Messi or Ronaldo to get bums on seats, so they're going to have to get a box office name maybe obviously not going to be as good as Brendan Rodgers, but they're going to have to get somebody in that sells these season tickets, because the disjoin between the club and the fans at the moment is massive, and they could find themselves in real trouble. Now, I did say, I have said previously that I feel Scottish football in general will struggle next year for the sheer fact, whether it was Celtic's league or Rangers league. I think a lot of Rangers fans will breathe a big sigh of relief that they've stopped the fabled 10 in a row. And I think if Celtic had won 10 in a row, they'll be thinking, well, there's not much else to do here, And I think there's going to be a slight lull. And that's where I think Celtic need to go out and get someone. It might not be the greatest manager, but it's going to have to be a box office name. As I say, I don't think particularly they're playing any better than what they have been doing. I think Shankers is right in terms of Edouard's picked up a few goals. But I'm trying to think what the game was. I watched was it St Mirren, and I was looking at guys like Ryan Christie and Rogic, and I'm going, they can offer so much more than what they're showing now, and they need to be better. I know it's hard, but I think teams now, and I think you saw St Mirren at Parkhead as well. I don't think teams are going to Celtic Park now and putting 11 men behind the ball and trying to grab a point. And I think that they can smell blood. And try and get somewhere, because they're so disjointed and lacking any sort of passion or enthusiasm. So I think Celtic, I don't really think are any further forward. I mean, I saw Neil Lennon's interview today, and he was saying that we've been poor in 4 games, and that's the difference between us and Rangers. And I'm going, you must be watching something completely different to what the rest of the Scottish population's watching. Because it's great to win, but some of the performances and that have been abject, to say the least. But I still don't think he'll be in charge. But it's going to have to be a big box office name to sell those season tickets this year.
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch a wee minute on before we move on to the Wilson's get some quick fire questions. Shankers, we watched the watch along on Thursday night in Europe. Are you kind of slightly worried about Rangers kind of Tavernier roofing now today? Ryan Jack been taken off injured. Are you slightly worried going into the tail end of the season that these players might just be struggling a wee bit?
No, I don't think. I think Rangers will get too much squad depth, and I think no matter who comes in and who goes out, I think there's just so much confidence in the squad. Obviously, they're big players, and if they're all fully fit, the chances of they playing the best 11. But I still think the players that can come in and replace them are more than good enough to play in the 11 week in, week out as well. So I think Rangers, as one thing they've got this year that they maybe lacked in the previous years is the depth of the squad quality-wise. They've had big squads in the past, but I don't think the quality's been there. Whereas this year, I think you can make 6-7 changes and I still think the team is just as strong.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. Rory, we've got the cup final coming up on Sunday, St Johnstone against Livingston. How do you see that going?
It's a bit of a coin flip. I like to avoid cliches when I'm talking about football, but first goal in that one. If St Johnstone score the first goal, then they'll be compact, they'll be difficult to beat, they'll be difficult to break down. They've got players who can hit you on the counter-attack. If Livingston score the first goal, it's exactly the same. I think if you were looking at this cup final 4 or 5 weeks ago, you would have Livingston as overwhelming favourites. However, I think with St Johnstone's form, coupled with Livingston have still got good form. A couple of defeats, I know that, but since David Martindale came in, they've been different class. So if you're asking me to pick a winner on that one, then I would have to say I can see it going the distance. Extra time, possibly penalties as well. I don't see a team running away with it. I know St Johnstone did that against Hibs in the semis, but I don't see that outcome. I think the first 60, 70 minutes will be don't lose as opposed to don't win.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that as well. We'll touch on Wilson's get some quick fire questions for Rory as well before we move on to some fan questions. What we got, we've been looking forward to these all day because we've been hearing about them all day.
I'm glad somebody has been.
Now I'm telling them the new again. We want answers, right? And I know. At the time of following you on social media, Rory, you were good friends with guys like Paddy Madden. All these guys. We're not interested in these guys. We want big names, no stooges. We want big names from Murray Park and Ibrox Stadium, don't we, lads? None of this. None of these Carlisle players or St Mirren players. Although I see he dropped Jack Ross's name in right enough early doors. I like that. Even though he's an enigma for me, I don't rate him at all. I think Craig Sampson's the brains behind that outfit, to be honest. But
he's a top manager, trust me.
Craig Sampson's the brains. He's the top man there. Right, are you ready, Rory? We'll start off easy, and then we'll get a wee bit more difficult. Because some are out-and-out questions are not choices, all right?
Okay.
So we'll go, mate, you've got to give your first answer.
You're going to ask the same one as Shanks asked last week, I can tell already. I think I had a start of that.
See what I'm going to say is, he's gave it all the big licks. I've been watching the shows week after week, and he's obviously know then if he's going to answer the question.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's a question you told me to ask about 6 months ago. You said you need to ask that every week. Right, are we ready?
Yes.
Messi or Ronaldo?
I better keep it the same as I said last week then.
Right.
I would go with Messi. If these are quick fire, do you want some background into it, or do you just want me to give you the answer?
Not quick. No interest in your part, son. We just want quick fire answer.
Messi.
55 or 10?
55.
Talbot or Cumnock?
Cumnock.
Oh! Can't believe that.
A lot of my family's from Cumnock, believe it or not.
City or United?
What's that?
City or United?
United.
Pep or Klopp?
Klopp.
Falkirk or Dundee?
Falkirk.
In your debut for Rangers, who did you come on for? 56 minutes against Inverness.
It was a double sub, so me and Ferguson came on for Thompson and Miller.
Correct, Kenny Miller. Your first in Fairmont goal was against who?
Airdrie.
Best player you've played with?
Probably Ferguson, to be fair. He was different class. He really was.
Worst player you've played with?
Worst player I've played with.
Don't say big Jamie Adams. That's no nice. He's a nice guy.
No, he would still fit quite nicely into that St Johnstone structure, I think. I would say, I mean, he was much adored by many Scottish fans, but Sibo was just, he really was bad. He was a lovely guy, but he wasn't great.
Right. Best player played against?
Best player I've played against? At any level, at any time?
Well, we want big names. We want Rangers.
Right, well, what I would say is, when I played for Kilmarnock, back in the day when the reserve games were on a Monday night and you used to get a couple of thousands at the games, and it was first team players didn't play on a Saturday. They played. Celtic came down to Rugby Park and Paul Lambert played. And in those days I played in midfield and he was something else.
Yeah, okay. Worst player played against?
Worst player I've played against? That's a tough one. Try to think off the top of my head.
Even in training, maybe at Murray Park, maybe somebody at training.
Who? Can we come back to that one at the end? I'll give you an answer.
We'll come back to it. I'll just make a wee mark. Best manager worked under?
It's a tough one. It would be very different styles between Peter Houst and Jack Ross, but if I was forced to choose, I would probably say Greg Abbott down at Carlisle was good as well, but I know you're uninterested in these answers, but overall Jack Ross.
Where's that? Worst manager played under?
Paul Hartley.
Most vain teammate?
Most vain teammate? I would say Kyle Hutton.
And a player that you played with that didn't, the best player that you played with that didn't make the grade that you thought, how's he not a professional footballer? Or how did he not make it massive time?
Trying to think in terms of ability as opposed to... There was a boy who came on loan. There's a couple actually. Do you know who I'm surprised no one went on to have a better career? He maybe has in a different country. Do you remember a Rangers player, Salim Kirkar?
Yeah, the Algerian.
Right, he came on loan, right, and he was just known as Bugera's mate. So he came across, and we were all a little bit like, who's this guy? Just Bugera's mate. Another guy who's going to take up a place in the squad that's going to do a young boy over, right? And then what happened was we played this testimonial game for a guy down at one of the junior parks. I think it was Pollock maybe, and he came down and we were like, this guy's not going to fancy this. He was unbelievable. He was chipping the goalie, he was lobbing the goalie for about 40 yards, he was dribbling, he was sensational, to be fair. Now maybe not quite Rangers quality, but I'm surprised he's not went on to have a better career elsewhere. Him and another lad, Ada Jaziri, who came on loan.
I remember him.
I don't know if he was on loan or I think he was probably signed. Now, he ended up just playing the youth team because he was that age at the time. He was 18, 19. He was Dutch, but he was phenomenal. Some of the things he could do with the ball was ridiculous. So, obviously, these types of questions, you're not going to hear names that you've heard of because otherwise they would have made it big. But those two were, Kerser and Jaziri were top-notch.
Right, and back to worst player played against.
Worst player played against... I think of one I've played against a good few times that wouldn't have been great.
Stephen Craigan.
That's tough. I've not played. He was a manager. He was a manager of Motherwell. I played with Dundee. I scored that day, believe it or not. So I think he had one game in charge and it was up at Dens. But worst player, it probably would be a centre back, to be fair. So. Who would we go with? There's some bad players down in England.
Can I throw up a suggestion you might have trained against?
Yeah.
Carl Svensson. Remember him?
I remember him. He was there when I was there. He wasn't too bad, but I can't be calling the guy the worst player I played with. He's probably got about 50 Rangers appearances and a couple of Swedish appearances.
That's what makes it fun.
I would say... Let's think back to that time then. Worst player. I played with Carl Svensson. I didn't play against him though.
Even in training.
Struggling
for a name. Because we want Rangers names, let's be honest.
Probably Shivo. He was bad. I remember one game. We were playing St Johnstone Reds. This was at the time where Owen Coyle was the St Johnstone manager. And they had a good team, your Jody Morrisseys and all the rest of it. And went to Murray Park, and it was around the time I was starting to get a bit older, 2021, and I was scoring enough goals in the Reds that I was knocking on the door of being involved at least on a match day. And I'll never forget, it turned up and there's me and other boy, Stevie Lennon. He's now scoring hundreds of goals in Iceland.
Yes.
And it was Tam Buffel, right, who on his day for Rangers was different class, a really good player, but it got to that point where he was never going to play, he wasn't bothered, and he was on his way out. But on his day, he was still a top quality player. So it was him running about, no arsed, and it was Sibo as well, who was running about arsed, but just terrible. And we're sitting on the bench, me and Stevie Lennon, and the ref runs it, but there's no linesman. Comes up to the dugout side, the linesmen have not turned up. They've not turned up. So I get handed a flag. Stevie Lennon get handed a flag. And we're needing to run the touchline. I just remember thinking, right, I can't get in the match day squad because of this guy. Offside every 2 minutes. Sibo, offside. And we played the second half, believe it or not. It was a 2-1 down, and me and Stevie came on and did well, and we ended up winning the game. But when you sign guys for millions of pounds as well, it then becomes difficult for managers and players to get left out when they're worth that amount of money. But he wasn't great at all. He wasn't suited to playing on the ground. He was a lovely guy, right enough. But he was good pals with Vladimir Weiss, who had all the ability in the world, and Sibo wasn't great. So a double dunter for old Philip Sibo.
So thanks, Rory. That's gave us a bit of insight into how bad some of the guys were at Murray Park.
Brilliant. We've got a very interesting question here for Tommy Griffin. I just want to throw to everybody. Question for all four of you. You have to pick a player, past or present, from your big rivals to play for your team's present-day first 11. Who do you pick? Shankers, Rory and Scott obviously need to pick a Celtic player, Wilson and a United player. We'll start off with Shankers. Pick a Celtic player from past or present to go into your Rangers team right now. Who would it be and why?
Henrik Larsson.
No-brainer.
Doesn't come into a question, really. I don't think I've seen a player playing for Celtic that I can remember that caused, like, he just played in an old firm and you go into the game maybe confident it's a Rangers spot, but you just think this guy could do anything on this pitch. And I don't think him going on to Barcelona and Man United and doing really well like surprises anybody. How many players for Rangers and Celtic can you say going and do stuff like that? So it would definitely be Henrik Larsson.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw in Craig Bellamy. I'm going to say Craig Bellamy's performance at Ibrox against Rangers for Celtic is the best Old Firm performance I've ever seen. He's 6 months there. I think he nearly won Celtic League on his own. So I'm putting Craig Bellamy in. Rory, who you got?
Based on what I seen when I was growing up and what a lot of boys who are a little bit older than me say, I would probably go with Lubo Moravcik. Anyone who has trained with him, played with him, that I know for Celtic said he was ridiculous. Like, you've never seen a more comfortable player on his left foot or his right foot. Some of his performances for Celtic as well were different class. So I think he would have fitted quite nicely into a lot of these Rangers teams, especially the current one, who are absolute ballers.
Wilson, you've got the whole of Ayr United's history to choose a player that goes into the Kilmarnock team right now. Who goes in?
I'm thinking Shankers or Scotty McLaughlin is definite up there, but I don't think he's as renowned as playing for Ayr as he did for Hibs, but I always thought Pat McGinley was a very good player. And when Ayr were kind of reaching, the dizzy heights of cup finals and that, there was guys like John Hughes was playing, James Grady, Pat McGinley, Andy Walker. We're all playing for them at a time, and as I say, Pat McGinley was a good player with Hibs and Celtic as well. Always like a striker. That's something I know Kelly fans will hate me for saying this because of what he did against Kelly, but Andy Walker was a player as well. I know he's kind of made him fondly by the Ayr fans, but I know Shankers doesn't rate his commentary particular, but Andy Walker was a good player. In the same way that Chris Boyd's a very good player, but his commentary skills have a lot to be desired as well. So I think I'd maybe Pat McGill and Andy Walker would probably be the ones I would like at Kelly. And to be fair, Kelly need a goal scorer and they need a bit of a box-to-box midfielder that can get tore in at the moment as well.
What about the other nine?
Well, you and Scotty, Big Kevin Kyle and that will come in and help it.
Derek McInnes, manager.
I'd like McInnes as a manager.
Did Barry Ferguson in your head before Daggett sacked?
Aye, but I'm just saying what I was saying was if Kelly had been at the start of a new season, if Alex Dyer had kept us up, went to the start of the season, I was looking for just something a bit different. Now, again, I know it's like any manager's a gamble, but guys like Barry Ferguson, I feel he wasn't great at Clyde, he wasn't rubbish. He's now in that league with Celtic Hearts, and he's done well. I think managers kind of change. See when they've had a knock, and they've maybe not done as well as they expected. Now, everyone we've had on this show that knows Barry Ferguson has said his training is first class, his ability was first class, So Barry Ferguson's maybe one of the guys that thinks the next job I get in professional football, if I don't do well, then that would be me, regardless of how good a player in that he was. Okay.
I still think, though, I don't know, I still think, and this is nothing against Barry Ferguson, I've never worked under him, and this is no personal opinion whatsoever, but in terms of, you talk about coaching there, you talk about his training sessions, you still got to be able to manage people. You still got to be able to manage a squad of 15 people. And whether you're a footballer or whether you work in a call centre, it doesn't matter what you do, you're still a person. So it's a different quality to have to be able to take a training session, to be able to manage people.
And I was going to touch on that as well. You've got, and I felt the same. It was a wee bit when Lee McCulloch got the Kelly job, you know, and Peter Leven's a big fan of the show. Not a big fan of me, a big fan of the show. when a young manager comes in, now I know Barry Ferguson's got Bob Malcolm, etc. When a young manager comes in, I think they need a bit of experience in beside them. So, for example, I just use this name as an example. When Lee McCulloch got the Kilmarnock job, I think if he'd got someone, just for example, like Archie Knox in as his number 2, someone that's been over the course a million times, I think that would have benefited him. Okay? Whereas he had a young guy in Peter Leven, and I just thought it was doomed to failure at the start because there was a lot of problems off the field as well at the time. And I just feel if Barry Ferguson, you know, he thinks if I do a rubbish job here, that's me. That's my managerial career in full-time professional football over. I also heard from a pal of mine, a wee rumour, that Peter Lovenkrantz had applied for the job. Now, again, that's come from left field. You know, but Peter Lovenkrantz obviously has ambitions to be a top manager. So why can we not? I mean, Rangers are a bigger club in Kilmarnock, but let's see. You know, and if he does well for 2 or 3 seasons, then moves to a bigger club, you know, then fair enough. I just felt it was. I always think with a lot of managers, the club look for someone that's not in a job. They don't look at the bigger picture and think, well, we can just go and take him. And I know money comes into it, etc. I just felt Tommy Wright was on the managerial merry-go-round, and I'm quite sure if you know, he was in the frame for the Motherwell job. I'm quite sure Jim Goodman left. He'd been in the frame for the St Mirren job. It's just same old, rather than maybe thinking outside the box and getting something a wee bit exciting. It's someone with something to prove as well.
I think the problem with that, with Kelly, is they're such in a tedious position at the moment. I think if it had been, and it's
at the time, Tommy Wright, the right appointment as such. I mean, if Alex Daddy kept us up, got to the end of the season, and it was getting revamped, these are the types of guys I would like to have seen. And as I say, somebody like Neil McCann as well. I know I'm just looking at a list of ex-Rangers players here, but Neil McCann must have something to prove. I think the way he left Dundee, I think he's itching to get back in. He's agitated and needs to prove himself. So there's maybe a change.
I was actually at Dundee with McCann for a spell before I went to Falkirk. So I did pre-season and all that and worked with him. I enjoyed working with McCann. He was good. Don't get me wrong, I was looking to leave Dundee at that point. He wanted to actually keep me because he felt I could nick a goal. But I enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed his training and stuff. So the likes of McCann, who's got that experience, I definitely, you know, plucking players or plucking coaches based on their previous playing career, it doesn't fit well with me that one. I think you've got to earn it. I don't think you should just be taken to a club based on the fact that you've played.
But I think for a club like Kilmarnock, it needs to be somebody that's hungry and going to come in and make a difference. As I say, I think a year, 18 months down the line, it'll be the style of football under Tommy Wright's rubbish, and we're drawing up every 0-0 and we're finishing 9th, 10th. There needs to be that wee bit of ambition, I think, and gamble to try and get us to a consistent top 6 team.
Yeah. Alessio, he was a bit of a gamble, no?
He was a massive gamble and had his 5th, and the punters wanted him out.
There you go then.
And that's, but again, it didn't. But again, I think there was obviously an issue with the players again. So, you know, Kurt Broadfoot left to go to St Mirren, then come back. You know, there was several things in the media. You know, losing to the Welsh team was never going to. He could have won the Champions League after that, but he'd be remembered for getting beat for the, what was it, Sturton United of the Welsh League. You know, and that's what obviously affected him right from the start. So the punters were never going to give him any sort of chance. But I'm quite sure, and again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Alessio maybe wasn't quite a bad decision as some folk make out to be. And I'm not a great fan, and it's a bugbear of mine. And I know it works at some clubs, but when the manager leaves, they just appoint a number 2. I just think if a manager leaves, that should be the staff that he's brought in. They are culpable as a whole, or they're successful as a whole, so they all go. Or they all
at Bournemouth now. Bournemouth, the number 2 that was Eddie Howe, he's just been sacked as well. I know it's Eddie Howe left his own account. It's the club is sacking the manager. Everybody should go, but I think the whole thing at Kilmarnock is Andy Millen's fault anyway.
Poor Andy. He's been absolutely chastised.
I know.
Andy's a great guy.
No, I'm getting on. That's what I've been saying. See the things on Twitter and all that about Andy Miller, and it's an absolute joke. And I was saying to Wilson, what is he was involved with reserve teams, and you know as well, Rory, how close in dialogue first team and reserve coaches and that work, because the players that are on the plane in the first team are playing with reserves, so they need to constantly know what's happening. And Andy Miller was a big part of that when Steve Clark was there, so he doesn't all of a sudden overnight become a bad.
I could not speak more highly of Andy Miller.
He's a
brilliant guy.
He was assistant when I was at Ayr as well. He's honestly first class.
I think he had an ill-advised comment after the Livingston game, and obviously tensions are running high. They lost 2 late goals, and again, don't quote me on this. He made a comment along the lines of that they only had 4 players on the bench because the other 2 boys were young boys and they're no good enough.
I don't agree with that.
Along those lines. And honestly, social media went bonkers, didn't it? It was obviously questioning his Ayr United roots and whatever, and it was ridiculous. And so again, I asked Shankers who works for him, and you're saying the same thing, Rory, that nicest guy you could meet. And
no, Vision is nice. He was brilliant at his job, and and he wanted to play. He wanted to play football as well, and he wanted to play it right. It wasn't always possible, given that that was my first loan spell at St Mirren. I worked with him, and I was in a place where I wasn't playing, and I wasn't I wasn't getting picked or whatever else. But he was a guy who, in training every day, would encourage you to do the right things, and he'd have a positive impact on everybody. I don't know anyone that's got a bad word to say about him.
Same.
Brilliant. We'll move on to some fan questions just before we wrap up. Josh has asked, why didn't Rory join St Mirren permanently? We touched on this in the interview, didn't we?
After the loan deal?
Aye.
So, kind of what I just touched on. So, after that, after we stayed up in the last day, Easter Road, the manager had changed. Paul Hartley had left and Neil McCann had come in. So, Neil McCann wanted to make a stay at Dundee, but in my head, I didn't want to go back to Dundee for a number of reasons. So, I did work under Neil McCann for a pre-season, and I think I would have had a good relationship with him. Like I said, I liked the way he worked and how he was. He was somebody that would manage. He would come in and he would chat to the players, and he would, but he wanted to keep me there. He thought I could nick a goal, and he wanted to keep me as part of the squad. So there was a little delay there in me leaving Dundee. Now, Dundee put a stipulation in my contract when I left. When I agreed to leave, that I wasn't allowed to sign for another Premier League club. So St Johnstone were interested at the time. I'd been on trial there under Tommy Wright, and they were interested, but obviously I wasn't allowed to sign there. So I had Dunfermline, Falkirk and St Mirren. And I think it was a coin flip. You've just asked me the best manager I've worked under. Jack Ross was at St Mirren, Peter Houston was at Falkirk. Couldn't really separate them. I loved working under the both of them. I loved both the clubs. I had really successful periods with both clubs. But I lost a Scottish Cup final with Falkirk, and I lost the league by 3 points with Falkirk. Whereas when I joined St Mirren for 6 months, we achieved our objective, which was to stay up. We were adrift by I don't know how long. And I remember actually, it was the assistant manager of Ayr United had made a comment, something about the result that they'd picked up before I joined St Mirren. I can't mind the guy's name. He was the assistant manager at Ayr that year, and he'd said something along the lines of St Mirren are gone. And Jack Ross had caught wind of this, and he would put it up on the team sheet every single game.
Sandy Stewart, maybe? No, Sandy Stewart, was he?
No, it wasn't. Who was the Ayr United manager then? It's not going to come back to me, but...
Was it Ian McCall who was the manager?
Neil Scully, maybe?
Neil Scully, that's who it was, he'd made this comment, and the gaffer put it up our first game away at Dunfermline, and we achieved our objective. And that day, Easter Road, scoring that goal to keep them up, we needed a draw, and I scored a goal which made it 1 each, and the full place went bonkers. It was a trophy day, Easter Road for Hibs, and we had packed out our away end and stuff like that. I just felt like
was that to stay in the Championship?
Aye.
I don't honestly can't really remember that when St Mirren were near enough done.
I remember before Jack Ross came in, they were it was like 15 points behind Ayr. Because Ayr were above you, weren't they?
Oh, aye, because then the next season they went on and
won the league.
Aye.
So I felt like I had achieved something at St Mirren, and I'd had that chance to go and celebrate, and that really was what it boiled down to. Falkirk had two very near misses. I was very fond of the club. Like I said, they got to the playoffs and just get beat off Kilmarnock. I know that Kilmarnock beat them 3-0 in the second leg, and to be fair, over the piece, even at home, Kilmarnock, was it that?
It was 4.
Was it 4? So I would say that's probably the main reason. It was a coin flip. I wasn't interested in going back to Dunfermline. Financially, they'd offered me the best package, but at that point in my career, it was better than Falkirk and St Mirren. But what I would say is that was all I could separate by. The two managers, the two clubs. I love the two of them. And looking back now, that's the reason that I really came to that decision. Obviously, it didn't work out. Falkirk that year, we weren't successful at all, and St Mirren were successful, but that's a whole different story. But that's probably the main reason why. I just wanted to win something. I wanted to leave Falkirk with them in a good place, but unfortunately I left with them. I think they got relegated the following year.
We'll just touch on a couple of questions as well. We've got a couple of questions about Robbie Neilson. Lewis Simpson and Robbie Henson have both asked, is Robbie Neilson the right man for Hearts? Shankers, what do you think about that? I'll touch on that with you.
I think Hearts, no disrespect to any teams in the league, I don't think Hearts had any problems going to win that league, no matter who was going to be the manager. And Robbie Neilson obviously has an affiliation with Hearts, and that's why he left Dundee United. He maybe felt that he needed to get Hearts out of the Championship and back in the SPL. I think that'll happen anyway. I think maybe next year is when you'll have to judge Robbie Neilson. I think he's got a kind of SPL-based squad in the Championship. I know results haven't been too great the past couple of weeks with Queen of the South, and yesterday was Morton. But I think there's going to be bumps in the road during that season. But I think there's something like maybe 8 points clear or something like that. It might even be more. So I don't think they're going to have any trouble winning the league. I think maybe this time next year when they're in the SPL, you can judge Robbie Neilson and how he is at Hearts then. But I think Hearts will go up and probably compete in the top 6 for maybe even Europe. I think they'll strengthen next year as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Last question. John Bleasdale and Stephen Nicholl both asked something regarding St Johnstone, so we'll give this to Wilson, who's a St Johnstone fan. Do you think momentum is with St Johnstone going into next Sunday's Betfred Cup final, and could they finish in the top half?
I definitely think they'll win the cup final. I've no doubts about that. As I say, I think slightly, I think Livingston by their own admission have probably overachieved. But yeah, momentum's definitely with them, judging on yesterday's results. And I just think as Rory picked up on Melamed and O'Halloran, St Johnstone have got guys that can win games for you, come up with a goal, etc. So I would fancy St Johnstone to win next week. As far as the top half, they've got a wee bit of momentum and a wee run going, but they should be bottom half, to be honest.
We'll touch on the cup final quickly before we go. We'll start off with Shankers. What's your prediction for the cup final?
Much like Rory, I think it'll be won by the odd goal. I hope it. I'm actually looking forward to watching a final kind of as a neutral. Obviously, I've said before, if Rangers are in the final, you want Rangers to win. If Celtic are in it, you want the other team to beat Celtic. So probably the first time for a while you're genuinely watching finals as a neutral and looking forward to a good game. I think it could be won by the odd goal. I think both teams aren't scared to lose it. I hope that, obviously they don't want to lose it, but I hope they don't kind of set up defensively and try and no lose a goal rather than score a goal. I hope it's dead open and both teams going at it. But I think it could go the distance, like Rory said, extra time, with odd goal, maybe even penalties as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Livingston to bounce back. I think Livingston will win. 2-1 Livingston I'm going for. Rory, yeah. Still.
Wilson's optimism for St Johnstone to win surprises me, given what he's touched on earlier in the show. But what I would say is, I do believe it's going to be a draw, probably one each. I think it will go the distance, like I said. If anyone's going to win it on extra time or on penalties, I think that Livingston have that little bit more mental strength when it comes to these type of situations. I think St Johnstone are good if they're 2-3 up, but I don't think it'll be that type of game. So Livy to win it one way or another.
Livingston. Wilson, you're sticking by Callum Davidson's going to deliver a trophy.
Well, it'll be the first Sunday in a while I've managed to watch Country File and Songs of Praise without any interruption, because there's no way I'll be watching that. I'll get the result on the CFAX at the end of the day. I'll go to apologise to Callum Davison and the St Johnstone fans. I'll go St Johnstone comfortable 3-0.
I'd call that. We'll hold you to that next week. But we'll wrap up this week's episode. I just want to thank Wilson for coming back. It's been brilliant to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me back. I thought my contract might not get renewed, but I'm happy to be back. I'm more than happy.
Brilliant. Rory, it's been a pleasure again. Love having you on.
No problem.
Brilliant.
Pleasure.
Shankers, pleasure as always. Really enjoy it as always.
I didn't really enjoy this one as much as the last kind of few weeks. I don't know why. Oh, good night.
Enjoy as much as your golf today.
Honking, by the way. That was terrible effort for me today, but we go again.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with another show. Thanks again. Cheers.